King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword, is directed by Guy Ritchie and stars Charlie Hunnam, Jude Law, and Djimon Hounsou, or how do you pronounce his name?
The black guy from Blood Diamond, Gladiator. The Fast and Furious 6.
Or 7.
7, yeah, never mind. 7, not 6.
And is the story of the classic tale of King Arthur, who, as we know in literature, is the famous knight who pulled the sword out of the stone and became the knight of the Round Table and all that in the classic hero story.
Yeah.
A little backstory with this one. This was actually directed by Guy Ritchie, who I'm not really too familiar. Like I haven't really watched much of his movies. I've seen bits of Sherlock Holmes, but I haven't watched the whole thing. He also directed the second Sherlock Holmes movies, Game of Shadows, as well.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people could be really the Sherlock Holmes movies are kind of mixy. Some people like it, some people didn't like it. It was like 50-50. I'm one of the people that didn't like it. I didn't care for it. I know that overwhelmingly a lot of people agree that the second one was really terrible, and that's pretty much what ended Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
As far as the Guy Ritchie type funny tone, it just didn't work.
Well, not to backtrack, but one of the earliest movies that he directed too was a film I watched most parts with was Snatch. Did you ever watch that?
I heard of it, and I think I've seen only bits and pieces, so I can't really judge that movie.
Well, from what I watched, I got into it, but I just never watched the whole thing. But anyway, that's the director of King Arthur, and it seemed like from what the trailers looked like, it was kind of giving that similar vibe, like how it's got that very quickie kind of edits that he does. And basically the story in this...
the poster, too.
Well,
like you think when you're going into this, when I'm watching it, keep in mind, I hate to judge, say it's going to be this film, because this film was one of those that looked cool when you first seen it, but then the movie was trash. It kind of had that Assassin's Creed look to it.
It did. It's in the ancient times.
Yeah, the ancient times. So I thought, the poster alone and some of the trailers, I was like, this might actually look pretty cool.
Pretty epic, yeah.
But Guy Ritchie has got a fucking tone in his movies that makes you question, can he... But he has a style that just doesn't look like it could do that. So people question the director.
Yeah. Well, and what got me interested is I'm a huge fan of Charlie Hunnam. I ever since I saw him on Sons of Anarchy, I really want to see him branch out into more movie roles.
Yeah.
Especially, come off of other movies he did, like Pacific Rim and things like that. And that other movie that we couldn't watch, that Lost City of Z, that I heard was really good.
That one, unfortunately, if me and him don't get to see movies like that we didn't get, but we had to watch on video, unfortunately. If me and him don't get to do, if he's not, able to get it when I can get it, or vice versa, one of us is going to end up doing a written review, unfortunately, on Facebook. That's why you see us jump around like that. If we can't get to them, our theaters are being pretty much trash this year. I've never seen our theaters run such stupid, I don't know what's going on, but basically, our theaters got rid of 3D. We have to rely on one more. We got 3 theaters to choose from. We're now down to 1 theater left that has 3D.
Yeah.
One does occasionally, but not often. But Malco was our big go-to because it's a big corporation. This is everybody goes to the Malcos. And our theaters have been pretty bad, and they're pretty much doing away with a lot of these independent films. We didn't get Free Fire. We didn't get Colossal. We don't get the, so on and so forth.
Yeah, but basically with this one, it got me really curious because I do like these kind of films that tell these epic stories and stuff. Because I'm a fan of Gladiator and things like that. And I am aware there is another version of King Arthur that came out in 2004, which I saw bits of. I saw even the ending of it, but I haven't really watched the full thing. But from what I remember of it, I also remember that one not being that good because it was kind of dragged out in some parts. Yeah. But with this one, it kind of looked like they were going to a different approach of Arthur that we haven't seen before.
King Arthur is one of those really great stories, kind of like Hercules and all that stuff. You're gonna always keep getting movies of because everybody wants to tell the story.
Yeah, in a different way too.
Yeah.
So with this one, it seems like Guy Ritchie had the idea where instead of doing more, he wanted to kind of go back to the fantasy element of King Arthur again, which had me kind of curious because they look like, from the trailers at least, it looks like it's going to take a very Grady feel to it, but also kind of mix in the fantasy elements as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, and for people to go into this, a lot of people are used to pretty much all the King Arthurs have been like that whole Monty Python kind of look, like a willow, like where the castles look really greenish and grayish and stuff, like really colorful and stuff, in a lot of medieval games too and video games too. But this one took more of a Lord of the Rings approach.
Yeah, which is one of our
which is strange. We'll get more into.
But
when we talk about
and keep in mind, this will contain major spoilers for the film. So for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, if you want to come back to our review or watch another review, this will contain major spoilers. So you have been warned.
Yeah.
So basically, the story deals with. We actually start out very fast with. King Arthur's father, I forgot his character's name, but he's played by Eric Bana, who's the king of the I think it's Camelot, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, he was the holder of the sword.
Yeah, of Excalibur.
Yeah, Excalibur. So he was the previous one.
Yeah, it starts out with Eric Bana's character, who's the king of his stronghold, and he's defending his stronghold from this weird kind of like sorcerer kind of person,
an evil.
Basically
evil bad sorcerer, people. Basically,
or whatever they're called, but basically they have like these giant elephants that are attacking them.
Yeah,
and he's fending them off and things like that. And right from the start, this movie jumps in fucking fast.
Yeah,
like seriously, the first like 5 minutes, we're already introduced to Eric Bana's character, Jude Law's character, who is his brother. I believe is his brother.
Even Charlie as a kid, baby version of him, and like he said. You get this story, and then you start seeing Jude Law start turning, blood coming out of his nose. You can tell that because these type of movies, a lot of people are have already made it obvious he's the villain in this.
Yeah.
So all the blood coming out, you know that he sold his soul to these people. Anyways, you get I already typically know with these type stories, the mom and the dad die defending. Some bad shit goes down. Jude Law sells his soul to these people in the name of wanting power, and then killing the mom and dad. The baby goes off, floats away, and then ends up family being raised. Yeah, we get all that in fucking 5 minutes. I mean, it looks like the movie's being fast forwarded.
Yeah,
it's so quick.
And you can kind of argue that this is probably Guy Ritchie's style of directing that he's used to, but the way that it's actually edited, it's jumping from scene to scene to scene so fast that I couldn't tell if that was on Ritchie's part or the studio, because I did hear that supposedly Warner Brothers did kind of have some interference with this film.
We already know Warner Brothers and what they like to fucking do.
Yeah.
But then again, Guy Ritchie has been known to do some of this, and the bad thing is Guy Ritchie, if that's his type of, if that's his style, these are the type of movies he can't be touching, because you need backstory, you need build up.
Yeah.
And if he can't, I could see him maybe doing shit like Nice Guys type movies, but he really can't be taking these really mythical movies like that and doing that style. Yeah. It doesn't work. Well,
because as it goes along, we already get into 5 minutes of the film, and all of a sudden, Jude Law immediately is resorting to this sorcerer that he brings a deal with. By gaining the power, he has to kill someone that's close to him, so he kills his wife. And then he goes after Eric Bana and his wife and son while they're trying to escape. And then we immediately cut, I shit you not, we literally cut from that to the opening credits, where we see young Arthur growing up already in a fucking montage. Him already learning how to train everything.
The montage is throughout the credits, so you're seeing him grow up from, there's no build up, they just rush it through the credits as the credits are rolling and the names playing in the movie.
Yeah.
You see him turning 5, 10, 13, and whenever it says the final directed by, when the credits are over with, boom, he's already grown. Yeah, growing. So this movie is being severely rushed, and it's kind of hard to pay attention, because, man, it's going so fucking quick, but yet the movie is long. It's like, why rush?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, they could have spent more time in this opening scene alone to kind of get more of the build up to this, because as the film goes along, and believe me, it gets a lot worse as it goes.
Yeah.
We see a lot of scenes that resort back to that opening, which makes it really just kind of feel like there's a chunk of that opening scene missing.
Yeah. So basically, what he's saying is, throughout the film, this movie is really notorious for this. There's scenes they want you to keep watching, like to pay attention to. I mean, and they're not like, I mean, it's not something you could be a retard and understand this. Like the whole, like, his mom and dad were killed at the beginning.
But
but then they keep showing us, like, they show us that flashback 12 times throughout this film. I'm like, oh my God, I get the fuck, he died, shit.
Yeah.
And instead of just showing us it, they show, like, it's like they're building up for showing us that his dad died when we already fucking knew he ain't with his dad, obviously. I mean, just show us that one time what really happened, all the way to Eric Bana dying, instead of showing us the mom died about 6 times in a row, and then build up. Like,
that's
it's like
what I'm saying.
It was so stupid to do that.
It had no reason to keep cutting back to that, because in a lot of these are dream sequences that we're seeing that Arthur has, and they do the same thing every scene with that. But as the story goes along, we see that Arthur is with his men, and we actually get some news from this group that's actually, I think they're representing Jude Law's character, but I can't remember. But basically, they come to him asking him of what he's doing, all that. And here is where you can kind of see that Guy Ritchie style comes into play, because there are dialogue sequences in this film that do feel like Guy Ritchie did these certain parts where it kind of does like these quick edits where it'll go from one person to the next person, and
basically
they're having
he's telling
fast
us
dialogue sequences.
Dialogue, but it's the Guy Ritchie typical dialogue scene, and it also is Guy Ritchie's known for this. Upon present, with a present scene, he's telling the future, and then it shows you, way ahead in the future of them doing that. But then it cuts back to the present scene,
and they do that a lot.
They do this throughout the whole so much. I'm like, I'm getting fucking lost. Slow the hell down.
Yeah.
For a 2 hour and 10 minute, about 10, 20-minute movie, it shouldn't feel rushed. That's like an hour and 30-minute movie. You should feel rushed.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, you had plenty of time to build great dialogue and build the story. It's just how you went at it was really what fucked you up.
Well, yeah, and then as it goes along too, we learned that Arthur, in the traditional story, we see that he goes to, him and his men are going on a journey to help out the person who is representing the king, and basically, not knowing that they're representing Jude Law, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a sequence where we see in the trailer, and in old-fashioned Arthur tales, where we see the famous pulling the sword out of the stone, which is the most common thing that we see out of Arthur.
And you know what was really that's so common, and that's like a big deal when he does that. It's supposed to represent something big. They did that, and it was only at the 15-minute mark. I'm like, damn, that was pretty fucking.
Well, not
big.
just that. It kind of felt in a weird way. It kind of felt pointless, because when he pulls it out, I mean, it's supposed to represent that he hasn't learned his power yet. But there's a lot of sequences in this film where Arthur always collapses to the ground, and he basically falls asleep.
So yeah, it's like he picked the sword up, and then like the power was overwhelming. He starts having flashbacks. One of the 12 flashbacks I'm telling you, every time he does anything, it brings him back to that again.
They do more of this shit than they do in Batman vs Superman, where Batman's having those dream sequences.
Yeah, this is like the whole fucking movie is dream sequence, like throughout the whole film. So he collapses, So because he was able to pull it out, they now found because we forgot to mention that Jude Law is actually looking for the heir that gets to control that. He's looking for the child. Yeah. He's been looking for the child for many years, because he's told that person will kill him, and he will take king. So Jude Law's like, all right, I got to find this guy and kill him.
Yeah,
my nephew.
And that's really that. Then that's another thing too. That they don't give clear motivation with Jude Law's character.
Yeah. And you notice how they don't go into like where Jude Law's like hint like, hey, we're blood relatives.
Yeah,
because in this movie, that Jude Law is actually technically his uncle.
Yeah,
it's his uncle. So it's like, you would think there'd be some big reveal like we're blood, and then like it would really emotionally fuck him up, Arthur up.
Yeah.
But instead, they don't even elaborate on that at all. It's like, did you not even realize that was your uncle? Because they don't even talk about it.
Exactly.
And telling he is your uncle because he's your dad's brother in this movie.
Yeah, if anything, this is less like King Arthur, and it feels more like Hamlet, where in the story of Hamlet was trying to murder his uncle since he murdered his father. But anyway, it's weird because we see that throughout this entire film, we also get introduced to since Merlin doesn't exactly appear in this film.
Yeah,
he has an apprentice in this film that represents Merlin, who is the mythical wizard.
Yeah,
and she basically comes to Arthur to try to get him to learn his power, how to handle Excalibur.
So whenever they caught, whenever the scene where he pulled the sword out, Arthur did. Like he said, it knocked him out because the power was too weak. Then you finally get the interaction between Jude Law and him. He's like, I've been looking for you and all that stuff. And then he's basically like trying, playing a Billy Badass, like, and then he pretty much says, my people are starting to lose faith in me type thing, I guess they were going for. So he's basically got to humiliate them in front of these people to make them believe that the real Arthur is a myth. So everybody would start loving Jude Law again. Yeah. Because Jude Law does mention that his people are starting to resent against him because they think Arthur is really around and they want to join Arthur, the real king. That's why they did that humiliation scene to make him like, see, because they told him he couldn't pick up the sword, and to say that you're not the real Arthur and all that bullshit. And then, like he said, you get that. That's where you met that chick.
Yeah, which is weird because I get that they were trying to change it up with Merlin, but I gotta tell you now, this is one of my biggest problems of the film. Yeah. They introduce this apprentice of Merlin who's basically sent out to do Merlin's work. Since I guess we're not really sure where he's at in the story. All we know is that she's representing him. Yeah. And basically, she has the same type of powers that Merlin has. And I shit you not, there are sequences in this film, as we see later, that she can easily take out so many enemies and basically makes a lot of the heavier shit kind of pointless.
Yeah, so Arthur has got, they break free. As they did all that for nothing because after when they're about to chop his head off, she pulled some magical powers. They break free, and then that's when he meets pretty much. There's a hidden place where all Merlin's people, after Jude Law took over. See, that's the problem. We don't know if Jude Law was alive when Merlin was alive or what. We just know that Merlin was hiding from his people were hiding, the rebels. Yeah. In this area, so then you get him like training, which we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this girl. This girl is practically whooping everybody's ass, and it leads to a war. It's like it really didn't need to, because with one little faraway distance, she could do this or kukaka and magic,
or use her crows,
and then they fucking defeat like 1,000 people in like 2 seconds. Like, you really don't need to go to war now. Just have her do it.
Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but we see that. Arthur is trained to use Excalibur to do his powers more, but there are a lot of sequences that don't make sense because we have inconsistency where he is trying to learn the sword, but then there's other scenes where he's like, I don't want to do it. He keeps changing his fucking mind throughout the entire film.
But not only that, it keeps knocking him out, like you said. Then he goes in his dream sequence. Then he's up. Then, like, he feels like he can hold it now. Then he fights a couple people, but he doesn't know how to use the power of the Excalibur other than using it as a regular sword. And then, you have him planning this battle and what they're gonna do to try to take out Jude Law, and then these people are supposedly 3 days ride away from each other, but man, there's scenes where he's at the place, then he's not back at the place where they're hiding at, then he's back where Jude Law. I don't know what towns he keeps going to.
The editing in this film. Was fucking sufferable. Now, I will admit that we did have a lot of problems with, say, Assassin's Creed last year, which had a similar feel like this one. Yeah. But I gotta tell you right now, I thought this editing this film was fucking worse because this is jumbled left and right all over the place.
There's actually
out of order.
There's a scene that goes consecutive, one after another. And this is all done in 6 minutes, which makes you just God damn, this movie's not only the editing's bad, it's being so fucking rushed at times. We have a scene where he's training with Merlin's little rebels, and they're 3 days ride away from Jude Law's evil castle. But then, he'll be at that castle and then, try to do some setup shit. where they had him at the castle. I'm like, Jude Law can kill him right there.
Yeah.
And then like he's like, I'll see you in so many days and we'll fight or some bullshit. Then he disappears. But then he's at that Viking place that he was at. That place where it's like not dark looking, but it's like a bunch of towns.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And it's like, I guess it's like a Vikings area.
Yeah.
It's like, I said, damn, you guys can, what do you got, fucking teleportation?
I know, they keep jumping around everywhere in this film, and the way that they're kind of doing, like, going from point A to point B, that also kind of reminds me of something out of, like, Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, other than the jumpy, they pretty much get to the point like Clash of Titans, which makes the whole movie seem so simple.
Yeah.
And the motivation is terrible.
Jude Law, I like as an actor, and I thought that I saw potential in his performance in this as a villain. Like, it was a good casting for him, but man, they really wrote his character without really much of a motivation.
He has no motivation, let alone he is not intimidating at all in this. His performance is great, but I think this is more writing, directing, and the production company. They kind of make him where he's just pretty much sitting on his ass in that fucking thing the whole time.
Well, not just that, but
he doesn't even have a apprentice that helps him that is even badass.
Well, and that's another problem too I have, is that there are scenes literally where he repeats the same shit. He says, go after Arthur, okay? Guess what? There's actually 2 scenes in a row where he sends his men out and they never get to him, and they never go to him until later in the movie, way later.
All right, here's this funny part. So he tells him to go after him, kill him. Then we ignore that he said that. So we're like deep in the movie. It's like, hey, didn't like 20 minutes ago he said he was sending somebody?
Yeah.
Somebody would come by now. I mean, since King Arthur can get to 3 different places in 6 minutes.
Then what about his men?
Yeah, his men. And then it would go, it'd do that. Then it would keep doing that, saying, about that. We're going to kill him. I'm like, you guys forgot to kill him the first time. How am I going to believe you're going to get there the second time? Then, when we least expect it, after we got so tired of listening to Jude Law saying, we're going to kill him, we're going after him, then this dude does find him, but doesn't bring Jude Law's military men with him.
Yeah, it's like a different group.
It's like he just killed everybody by himself and then say, we captured this girl and... I just got to relay you a message.
Well, not just that. We also... This was funny because you told me this when we were at the drive-in. He told me about this. There's actually a group that's going after Arthur and the men, and they look like if Jason Voorhees had a black mask.
Yeah, so Jude Law, his military guys wear these actually, I kid you not, they're all spray-painted Jason masks. And, I get that you're trying to you want to try to do something designy different, but the whole moral of that error, I just don't see those type shit, which is why the movie got criticized for looking too much like Lord of the Rings and not much as a King Arthur film.
Where it's not really representing the Dark Ages too much, or the actual Camelot.
Yeah, the Camelot feel to it. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like that. It feels like fucking Two Towers. Straight up. Especially when that tower, it looks like the fucking tower from the Lord of the Rings. I'm like, dude, this feels, I can see why everybody referenced Lord of the Rings in the reviews.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but as it goes on too, we also see a lot of weird, like, scenes that are basically rinse and repeat. We have a lot of scenes where Arthur is questioning himself why he wants to use that fucking sword, which is, kind of common
movie,
sense.
He's constantly doing that.
And he has his men that are in the film. They're supposed to have some kind of like impact later on, and a couple of them are supposed to be like having that, but you don't feel anything because there are sequences that feel kind of pointless when they die.
Yeah, like for instance, that Dijon, what's his name?
Dijon Hinzu?
Yeah, Hinzu, whatever his name is. He's a big actor, and he's represented to be something big in this. And this kind of bothers me that he was actually fighting alongside with Eric Bana, Arthur's father, but doesn't talk about like, hey, you were his son. Your father was such a good man. They don't even mention anything about any blood. Like till pretty much the end, Charlie doesn't even know that his dad was even killed by this dude, and all these people do know it.
And
it's like, why'd you not tell him earlier then?
And not
makes no sense.
That's another thing too.
Yeah.
This film jumps from having either too much exposition going on, where they're explaining the plot, and other stuff where they're not explaining much about it at all. Like they're explaining too much. Like for example, we'll get stuff that's going on to basically plan things out with the men. men. The men are planning to attack. They spent a lot of time setting up these planning.
To be honest with you, they actually spent the entire movie
just planning the action.
And then spending less time on story buildup, and you have no emotions with anybody in this film.
Well, not just that, but there's also, and I read about this in Brad Jones's review, there are a lot of exposition dialogue sequences where they're actually telling the actual character stuff that we already fucking know in the film.
Yeah.
Like, you'll be hearing stuff you'll be seeing things that the audience can pick up on, but the movie explains it to you like we're fucking dumbasses.
Yeah, basically what he's saying is this movie will spend all its time on the basic stories of Camelot and King Arthur, of shit that even our 6-year-old kids know. I mean, everybody's taught it in school and know the basic narrative of the story.
Right.
So fucking that's what they feel like they gotta go on that.
Yeah.
The whole movie, and it's like, no, really, I don't know what the fuck.
There's a difference between suspicion and disbelief, and then just basically talking down to your audience like you're not like something you already pretty much know about.
And with Guy Ritchie, I don't know much of his work, and I'm not really strong fan of some of the stuff he's done, and this is being one of the reasons. He likes to explain his plot when men are sitting down and are talking about doing it.
Yeah.
Instead of actually doing it.
And actually showing it.
And I hear that's actually Guy Ritchie does that in all his films. And if that's true, man, I don't know if I could get into any of his work.
Well, keep in mind too, like we were kind of saying earlier, I think there might have been some things that the studio got involved with.
I'm sure it's a mixture of both.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can tell that a lot of scenes were either cut out from the studio, or they were disjointed where they were kind of rushing along too much.
Yeah.
But anyway, basically as the story goes along, Arthur is trying to go after Jude Law's character, and there's a lot of these action sequences are kind of just very generic. Like, really, it's not until we get to pretty much the final climax where, well, actually, before that, I got to talk about this. When we get to see that those guys in the black mask that look like Jason come out in later in the movie, I shit you not, this film has some weird score playing. This is
actually quite funny, actually.
Yeah, well, this is something that me and him were actually kind of making fun of as we were going along watching the movie. So, there's a sequence where these men show up, and I shit you not, you know that trailer where Arthur and his men are running, like, to the water and stuff? There's actually music where it's actually someone doing...
Yeah, the song, basically... And like it's not even that. Even when they're sitting down and talking, and this stretches out for a while, there's the score, the only main score they have in there is, it goes...
It's like somebody,
and then you hear while somebody's like hitting something like a drum, and that's actually a fucking main score in this movie. I'm like, damn, someone sounds like somebody's getting boned in the background.
Yeah,
and it doesn't fit this thing. Other than that, they also have this one they also like to play where it sounded like the Seven Doors were going to come in
with their whistling.
They're actually doing kind of the beat to it. And I was like, that don't feel right. And then the one thing is where Jude Law likes to talk. They try to do a menacing score when he talks, and it sounds like something out of Tom and Huck, where it's like boom boom with a violin, like that kind of error, like where you think Davy Crockett is going to come out in the movie, Davy Crockett error, like Pocahontas and shit. That violin felt like that kind of error. It's like, man, this movie's got some really bad sound mixing and horrible score. Yeah.
And not just that. Oh, this is another thing too. Okay, you know how we mentioned the Merlin's assistant, or I forgot her actual name, but basically Merlin's apprentice who's helping them out. There are actually sequences in this film where, I shit you not, the CGI looks so bad. It's on levels of something out of, like... You remember that one movie that came out a couple years ago called Seventh Son?
Yeah.
Imagine that and taking the CGI from that film and putting this.
Especially, I guess you could say the big giant snake was... Like, when he opened his mouth was okay, but other than that, the snakes were really bad looking in this movie. Yeah. They were like Clash of the Titans bad. Yeah, this movie has a jumbled fucking disaster when that CGI, because it gets better, it gets worse, because when, as it goes along, we see that, we end up seeing that Basically, we're at the part now where Jude Law sent a guy to go tell him, let's just meet. So you got this whole war building up, like they think they're going to go to this massive war, only to have one girl captured, and he said, just meet me at the castle on this day.
And what's weird is that
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, we built up for the build-up was even stupid to even do because it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But this is where it's going to end. You're just going to just calmly go in that motherfucker?
Not knowing that he would that he has always been planning that out, and you know,
and then you get Charlie Arthur literally doing that. He rides alone in the castle.
And he got there, and Dijon Jesus kind of showed up earlier. Remember how it kind of was going back and forth with Dijon, like going to see him, and then he has like a 3-day ride all of a sudden back that fast?
Yeah, Dijon, for some reason, I was like, are you working for him? But he wasn't. He went and walked into Jude Law's castle, walked out knowing that he works for Arthur, and they didn't kill him or do anything.
Yeah, I'm like, whose side are you on?
But yet, there are scenes where Jude Law will kill somebody that's associated with Arthur and cut off their ears and their throats. Like this guy just seriously don't know who he's gonna kill and who he's gonna let live.
He's very inconsistent.
Yeah, he's very inconsistent. So we get to the scene, the final battle. Basically, it goes. Jude Law basically realizes that because the snake is killing everybody, which you didn't need Arthur because this girl just used her powers to kill all Jude Law's men in like 2 seconds. They all died.
This whole sequence where she turns into a snake and everything and kills all of them, that could have been that you could have killed ended it right there. It's like
she had the chance to eat Jude Law, but yet she just leaves. It's like, oh, I guess you have to do this.
Because it's typical cliche 101 where you had to have your hero fight the villain. That's the only reason I can see why they did that shit.
And then Jude Law turns into that same thing where he sacrifices. This movie, he keeps having to kill his family members to sacrifice to become this entity that has a Excalibur version, but and more of a Grim Reaper knife, and he can actually take on anybody with that sword. He can take on, and I mean, we'll get to our pros here in a second, but
this look that they have filmed was kind of was kind of cool a little bit at first, but then it was
like Lord of the Rings.
It looks like if Sauron fucked Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah. It's essentially the same mask that he wears. So
basically, you guys, they fight. There ain't no detail we really have to go into it, and then it ends with them, which this was one of my pros. I'll get to it, but basically ends where they defeat the villain, and then now King Arthur becomes king. Then they do the cool classic,
the Knights of the Round Table
cliche, where they end it with them building the table, and they're like, "What is this going to be? What is this big old table?" It's the Knights of the Round Table, and then you have them knighting. You've been to the Knights of the Round Table, which I guess that I actually like that because that's actually you got to have that in this film. But that's pretty much it on the story.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was a colossal mess.
Yeah.
Now this is probably one of the worst edited films that I've seen in a while. Yeah. Now keep in mind, last year we had some pretty bad edited films, Batman vs Superman, Assassin's Creed, and all that. Yeah. But this was taking those films and upping it down to like 10,000% adrenaline. Yeah. It's so fucking messy with going scene by scene. Yeah. And there's a lot of sequences that are out of place too.
The smartest filmmaker. The smartest film watcher who can always catch the hardest shit was even having trouble following this movie. Like, you're all over the place. Like, I didn't even know what the next scene we're out fucking was. I'm like, God damn. And it's not like I didn't know what I was watching. You can watch this 10,000 times and you're not going to know where the fuck you're at.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It does feel like there's a chunk of this film that was cut out maybe about an hour at least.
Yeah.
That Warner Brothers fucking cut out.
Yeah.
For runtime probably.
Yeah.
So if there is an extended version out there, that probably would have gave more motivation to Jude Law. Because basically Jude Law in this film, the only thing that he wants is power because I guess... Well, it's only assumed that he's probably jealous of his brother and he wants power.
All right,
that's really it.
Here, I'm going to get down to it. Pros. We already told you our cons. Those are all our cons. Our pros was I did like how when Arthur used his Excalibur and he was actually fighting, that was badass.
It was. I love the visuals they use on that too.
I wish they would have done more of that because that shit. We can see what the power is. Why it's so good to have that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's got
graphics were great on that.
Yeah,
man.
the CGI was used good in this scene, even though it was like tiny parts where it kind of looked like a video game.
Yeah.
It still had the feel where you were kind of getting the fun moments of it.
Yeah,
which I enjoyed because I liked how he was slicing it and he killed guys in like 2 seconds.
For what it's worth, the performances were great.
Yeah,
nobody had bad performances.
Yeah, I say that. I mean, the movie surrounding them was really bad, but I thought Charlie Hunnam did good as Arthur.
I did like Jude Law as a villain.
I like Jude Law as villain. I just thought that his character was so underwritten and so underdeveloped to a fucking like.
I blame that on like production.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, but yeah, as far as performances, they did fine with what they had to work with.
Yeah,
and I also did kind of like the way that the at least. As far as the landscape looks, like when we get to like the different towns, the different like mountainsides and stuff, at least they look in some aspects of the cinematography.
And then there were parts like I did forget to mention one more con. There are some stretchy parts. I was getting really bored with this movie, but then this movie, for what how bad it is, because it is a bad film. It's one of those movies that you can actually sit and finish the movie. It's not like it's terribly boring.
And not just that, but me and him throughout the film, we were kind of doing like they do off of Mystery Science Theater, where we're kind of like talking about it like as a commentary. And this is a film that you can actually get together and drink and actually have a good time and laugh at.
Make fun of it. Because it was bad.
It's hilariously bad, though. Yeah. Because there were parts where me and him were making fun of the music. And also, there was, it's one of those movies it's forgettable, but you can still make fun of it.
Yeah, and it's sad because if you notice, other than Lord of the Rings and Hobbits and a few exceptional these type mystery, these type fantasy movies, I notice a lot of these Herculeses, these type fucking Camelots, these King Arthurs, these Robin Hoodish, these type, classic, like fantasy movies, they all get terrible as they go. They just can't make a very good one.
If anything, because it seems like with this one, they wanted to do a different take for Arthur, which I got. It's just that for those who grew up with, say, something like The Sword and the Stone or things like that, like the classic Arthur, that's something that really fits well because it seems like with those movies, or in maybe even except Merlin, that miniseries, they're still sticking to a consistent level and still giving you the fantasy level, but doing it right. So with this one, I can say that overall, like, this movie was bad, but it's definitely something I'm probably going to forget about after watching it.
It's forgettable
at best.
But I probably will never watch this again.
Yeah. Now, if there's maybe someday, if I was really wanting to check out if there's an extended cut, I actually probably would check it out at least out of curiosity because I do want to know where the fuck the certain scenes went to.
Plot.
Yeah.
Where's the main plot? Where's the story build up? Where's why is nobody got character like build up to this?
Yeah, you get really lack of any development in this film at all. And some of the action scenes are choppy in parts too. So with that overall, I'm going to give this movie about a 4 out of 10. Yeah. It's bad, but believe me, it's got something, at least something I can talk about better than that piece of shit we're about to talk to next.
Yeah. I think I'm giving it 2 credit here, but I'm just going to go with this because I don't think it's worth I don't think it's going to be a top 10 worst, but it's going to be close to a nomination. Hard to say. I'm going to go with 4.5 out of 10. Yeah,
it's not going to be in my worst of list, but it's come close.
Yeah, so I'm giving King Arthur a 4.5 out of 10.
It would be at least a nomination for me.
Yep.
But but we do, guys, thank you so much for watching our rant, basically, of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. For those of you who have seen the movie already as well, what did you guys think of King Arthur? Comment below, and if you like what you see here, you can check out more of our reviews, and we'll be seeing you in our next one. We'll see you later.
Later.